far that people email me or they'll talk to me about is, Jim, the Sabbath was given only to the Jews. We'll talk about that. They also say that it's the Christian Sabbath is on Sunday. The Jewish Sabbath is on Saturday. I just had someone last week, even in my own family, that said, Jim, the Sabbath, the Jewish Sabbath is on Saturday, but the Christian Sabbath is on Sunday. Well, we have a major scriptural problem with that because that's two laws. One for the Jew, one for the Gentile, when we don't have time to go into it, but in Deuteronomy it says that I will have one law for the Jew and the Gentile. One people, one law, one God, one Messiah, one land. Number 3, most common myths about the Sabbath is it ended at the cross and was not reestablished in the New Testament. Number 4, Paul taught against the Sabbath. We're going to find out whether that's true or not as well. And also the New Testament church kept the Sabbath on Sunday. And that is very, very common. So let's start off with myth number 1. It was only given to the Jews. First of all, we need to determine where did the term Jew even come from. Well, it's very important to understand this before we go any further, because this is probably by far one of the biggest misconceptions of the entire Bible, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it a little bit later, is that there is the Old Testament, which is for the Jews, and the New Testament is for the Christians. Well, it's very important to remember that the word Jew comes from the term Judah, which is the tribe of Judah. And it's also not only the tribe of Judah, but it's also the southern kingdom. You have the northern kingdom, which was called the house of Israel, and the southern kingdom, which was called the house of Judah. Over time, eventually, the house of Judah became known as, the Jews. And so that's why we have Jews today, is because the Jews came back from captivity in for 70 years in Babylon back in 586 BC, where the northern kingdom never came back. They assimilated into the nation. So today, the word Jew can mean Israel, but Israel of the Bible is all 12 tribes. So matter of fact, in that line of thinking, how many tribes of Israel were present at the base of Mount Sinai when the commandments were given? This is really important, because if we say that the Sabbath was only given to the Jews, then what we're saying is that the only tribe, the only kingdom that was at the base of Mount Sinai was the house of Judah, or Judah themselves. There had to be no other tribes at the base of Mount Sinai if it was only given to the Jews, because that's what the term Jew means, okay? There were 12 tribes at the base of Mount Sinai. All 12 of them were there. So clearly, he did not give it only to the Jews. He gave it to all of the sons of Jacob, Yaakov, or Israel. And that's the biblical answer to who did he actually give it to. He gave it to all the sons of Israel. The third question that we need to ask is this: how many would end up being considered Jewish? And we just answered this, that there was the southern kingdom that ended up being Jewish, which ended up being comprised of Judah, Benjamin, and a little bit of Levi. So that, if you were in the southern kingdom, eventually you became Judah, or Jewish. All the rest of them were from the northern kingdom: Asher, Dan, Naphtali. All of those are not Jewish. So if you're from the north, if there were such thing as a Danite today, they would be called a Danite. They would not be called Jewish. Even if they kept the Sabbath, all the feast days, and the entire Torah, they could not be called Jewish because they're not from the southern kingdom. They were from the northern kingdom. If anything, they'd be called a Ephraimite or an Israelite, a Hebrew. That would be probably a more biblical, accurate explanation of those that are from the northern kingdom. And so what was the purpose of Israel? Isaiah 42:6. This is really important. I, Yahweh, have called you in righteousness and will hold your hand. I will keep you and give you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the Gentiles. Does that sound familiar? Because in Matthew chapter 5, Yeshua says the very same thing. He says, I am the light to the nations. And then he turns to his disciples and he says, now you are the light to the world. You see, that wasn't just a brilliant stroke of genius that he came up with. He's literally keeping the same message that he had from the very beginning of time all the way till the time where he gives these instructions, it's the same instructions that his father gave Israel to begin with, is that I want you to be a light to the nations. Now think about this for just a moment. If Israel is a light, that means that there are people in darkness. And so what happens if people are in darkness and they can't see, and you see a light? Picture yourself in your dark bedroom, and you get up in the middle of the night. What is normally the very first thing that you're going to gravitate towards so that you can not bump into the walls? You're going to find the first light. Your eyes are going to be attracted and gravitate towards light, because where there is light, you can see. And so that is the whole illustration that God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is trying to get across to his people, is that I have given you the truth, which is my light, which David says many times in the Psalms and throughout the Scriptures, that his truth is light, and a light unto my path, right? And he says, they are in darkness. I want you to take my truth, keep it so that I can bless you, so that they will be attracted to the light, and then they can join you. And that was the whole concept in Exodus when the Israelites left Egypt, and some of the mixed multitude came from the Egyptians. Some of the smart Egyptians defected from the army, and they said, you know what, their God's a little bigger than our God. I think I'll follow their God. And they defected, and they came with the Israelites, and Moses said, came to Yahweh and said, what are we going to do here? They're not native born. What should we do? And Yahweh said, absolutely allow them in. This is the first time we see grafted in happening in the Bible that we come to later in Romans chapter 11, where he says, let them be grafted in, and let them be as native-born Israelites. The only thing I'm going to require of them is this, and it's the same thing, by the way, in Acts chapter 15, which we'll address a little bit later. Same halakhic decision. He says, have them be circumcised and have them keep my commandments, and they will be no different than any of my children. Okay? And so that's really important for us to understand right up front, that the purpose of Israel was to be a light to the nations. Unfortunately, they didn't do their job. So the Father had to send his Son down here to teach us how to do our job. Deuteronomy chapter 4 says, I have taught you decrees and laws as the Lord my God commanded me, so that you may follow them in the land you are entering to take possession of it. Observe them carefully, for this will show your wisdom and understanding to the nations, who will hear about all these decrees and say, surely this nation is a wise and understanding people. What other nation is so great as to have their gods near them the way Yahweh our God is near us whenever we pray to him? And what other nation is so great as to have such righteous decrees and laws as this body of laws I'm setting before you this day? So think about this. We have the Great Commission idea in Christianity where we spend millions of dollars and we go out and we tell everybody about Jesus, and you got to do this and you got to do that. And we try our best with most creative ways of audio, visual, and pamphlets, and little tracts and videos and all of these things to try to get people to see the gospel, to try to make it the most attractive thing possible. But the very first Great Commission was this. It was, keep my commandments, and I will bless you so much that the nations will come to you. You won't have to go to them, because they will see that they're in the dark, that they're not being blessed, that you're the ones that have rain on your land, that you're the ones that are not hungry, that you're the ones that are being blessed in every way known to man, and they're going to come and find out that what an incredible God that you have that has such amazing and marvelous decrees and statutes. Tell us about your God. Now, wouldn't it be nice if you had people knocking on your door asking you, tell us, how are you doing it? How are you so blessed? Why are you so happy? Why are your marriage so happy? Why are your kids so good? And you have the opportunity to tell them. See, I'm going to suggest to you that one of the biggest problems that we have in religious Christian circles today is that there's not enough meat on the bones. There's not enough of a growth in the garden, if you will. There's not enough life coming out of the life for that people can see the life and desire it. We have so many things that we offer them, and they see right through it, and they see dead bones. They see walking dead people, if you will. And I believe the Father wants to resurrect the bones and put the flesh and the sinews back on so that we can absolutely have life flowing out of us like a river that brings life to the nation.